Well, it's going to be a busy night in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England because we've got a railroad train of thunderstorms, one after another. Numerous flash flood warnings are up, and we're going to be talking about that. Also, we have numerous flash flood warnings in South Carolina and into southeast Georgia because of Tropical Storm Debby, which is now offshore. We'll give you the outlooks on both because a lot of rain that's going to be falling in a good chunk of the eastern part of the United States for the remainder of the week. And that's all next on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. The revolutionary Tempest weather system is yours for the asking. Get one and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the descriptor to this podcast. The coupon code is
Summer 2024.
if you use it,
You'll get 10 big percent off.
oh, and let me just fix something here. There we go. Now we're on the screen. All right. So,
Hi.
hi there, and hi to everybody on the chat board, and those of you lurking in the background. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. You can find us here Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. The occasional Friday and Saturday when there's storminess around. I got a sense we're probably going to be doing a Friday show this week. Subscribe, turn your notifications on, and if you like the show, hit the like button so we can get to 100 likes tonight. Okay, so you've got radar duty tonight, Mr. Rayo, because the radars are about as busy as we've seen them in quite a while. Uh, Thunderstorms, and they are like a choo-choo train and just sort of running one after another after another.
Well, you could see on the first radar up is the Upton radar from National Weather Service, New York City. Let me just blow this up a little bit here. There you go.
And
So that you,
I'm just gonna search for flash flood warnings. Go ahead. I'm
all
sorry.
Okay, so you, as Joe was mentioning, and to tell you the truth, for much of the day today, the places that have been getting hit hard has been across portions of north central New Jersey, east to Long Island. Joe, up until a little while ago, I had hardly seen anything. I have in my rain gauge 2/100ths of an inch of rain, but meanwhile, places just to the south, down toward lower Westchester, Yonkers, into parts of the Bronx, for example, have seen some very heavy rainfall already, with rainfall totals or rainfall amounts quite possibly in the 1 to 3 or even 2 to 4 inch range. So the rain has been coming down hard in some places, other areas still waiting for the rain to arrive. And you can see on the current satellite, on this current radar loop out of Upton, that the rain, which has been basically moving, or the showers and scattered thunderstorms, which have been basically moving from west to east, is now also beginning to lift to the north. You can see some of the orange and reds lifting northward, and I live right about here where you see the cursor, the arrow pointing. I live right about there, and you can see I haven't really seen all that much yet, but I just took the dog out a little while ago and was able to hear thunder, so I'm assuming that eventually I'm going to get into this, and it's going to be a rather hefty rain amount, I think. It's not going to last all night, incidentally. I think, quite frankly, that whatever we do see is going to come within the next 2 to 3 hours, and then after midnight, much of what you see here will have moved away to the north and east. So we're going to put down a fairly good amount of rain, but it's going to happen only over the next few hours. Now, this again is the New York radar. Let's go down to Philadelphia, and you can see that line of showers and embedded thunderstorms, and you can see really some angry red colorations here moving into the Lehigh Valley of Pennsylvania. That is, of course, where Allentown and Bethlehem and Easton is. They're getting pounded pretty much. Philadelphia hasn't received much of anything yet, but they will, because this area, again, is progressing to the east and will be in the Philadelphia area. In fact, probably within the next hour or two, the line will run from Philly on up through Trenton and up into the New York metropolitan area and up into the lower Hudson Valley, which again hasn't really received all that much. Lower Hudson Valley, that is, but that'll be ending very, very soon. You can see how quickly the radar is filling in now across the lower Hudson Valley. And as I said, parts of northern New Jersey and Long Island, you've been getting it all day long and are going to continue to get it for a while longer. Let's go to another radar. Let's go to, well, we'll take a look at Albany, get a different perspective. And up in Albany, you can see that there are showers, but it's nothing really particularly heavy, just some heavy rain activity, heavy rain showers. You can see that the thunderstorms are pretty well to the south. And this area of rain and shower activity, again, progressing from west to east, moving toward the capital district of Albany, and we'll be enveloping that area very soon, over the next hour or two. Let's go down to Washington, Sterling, Virginia area. They are pretty well out of it for the moment. Most of the activity, and what this is, by the way, these heavy duty showers and storms, they're associated or affiliated with a cold front that right now is located pretty much right across the tri state New York metropolitan area. This front is going to sag slowly but surely to the south. And Joe, when we get into tomorrow and Thursday, I told Renata we might be able to turn the air conditioners off for a while. East northeasterly winds. Temperatures tomorrow and Thursday may be hard pressed to make it much above 70. It'll still be rather humid, but it looks like those east northeasterlies are going to hold temperatures down, along with the rather thick cloud cover over the region. So that's what's happening in the local area. Any other location that you want to go to, or?
Well, let us now adventure down to North and South Carolina and Southeast Georgia.
Well, they have been getting bombed for a different reason, not because of the cold front, but because of Debby. Here is the outer spiral arm of Debby. Debby is located right about here right now, apparently just along the Georgia, South Carolina coast. Excuse me. And you could see that this is one of the rain bands that is now currently affecting northeastern sections of Florida and eastern sections of Georgia. And again, let's go to a different perspective.
I have, by the way, I got some rainfall amounts here. In Georgia, Bryan County, this was as of 11 a.m. this morning, so 10.62 inches.
Ouch.
Uh,
Ouch.
Blichton, or Blickton, I think it's Blichton, 10.55 as of 1 p.m. Just trying to get some of the bigger amounts here. In Chatham County, Garden City in Chatham County, 9.37. In Candler County, Medarth, 6.64. Bullock County, at 7:30 this morning, had 6.70. In Effingham County, Joe, Rincon, 11.09, and that was also as of 7 o'clock this morning. Uh, those are some of the bigger numbers here. In South Carolina, in Beaufort County, or is it Beaufort? I always forget. Is it Beaufort or Beaufort? I think it's Beaufort.
I think it's Buford. Yeah.
Beaufort County. Um, okay, so there are three rainfall measurements as of from this morning: 7 a.m., 7 a.m., and 9 a.m. The 9 a.m. one is 12.66. These are three different stations in Beaufort. 11.33, and the third station 11.16. Seabrook 10.89. Fripp Island 10.06. Those are the higher amounts in Berkeley County, 8.52 in Hanahan, in Charleston County at Disto Beach, 12.42, and then another one in Disto Beach, 11.61. 2 miles northwest of Charleston, 11 inches. It's kind of North Charleston, 8.72. 1 mile southeast, 1.7 miles southeast of Charleston, 9.15. Okay, so we get the idea. Um, in, in Dorchester County, Somerville, 9.95, and Colleton County, Green Pond, 14.02. So far, by the way, a lot of these rain observations were from 7 o'clock this morning. So anything that fell during the day isn't even in these numbers.
It's been incredible. You can see here the Wilmington, North Carolina radar. That's LTX right here. And you can see all of the rain and all of the showers and embedded thunderstorms coming in from the Atlantic Ocean, swirling around the center of Debby, which again is probably right about here. And you can see that the area is affecting right along the border of North and South Carolina. And another band is moving in across the eastern and northeastern part of North Carolina. So, as you just heard Joe mention, tropical moisture and rainfall totals generally in the 10 to 12-inch range, just about a foot of rain in many locations.
And
It'll take
they have 2 more day, potentially 2 more days of this.
That's going to be the problem. The slow movement of Debbie. She is not going to move very quickly over the next couple of days. And sadly, when you have that situation and when you got all of this moisture, you're just going to keep piling it on, so to speak. Which is why there are places that are probably going to receive closer to 2 feet of rain when this is all over, said and done. You can see that it looks like the central and eastern sections of South Carolina are getting hit hard. Meanwhile, in the western mountain area, the western sections of South Carolina, most notably Greenville and Spartanburg and those areas, they haven't seen anything. They are just out of the edge or fringe of this tropical system. And so for the moment, they are staying dry. But places closer into the coastal plain are getting hit very hard. As we mentioned yesterday on the National Weather Service or the Weather Prediction Center's um, quantitative precipitation map, anywhere from Savannah, Georgia to Charleston, the projection was for 16 to 20 inches. Well, it looks like in that area, they're already about halfway there, and they've got more rain to come over the next, again, 24 to 48 hours.
Uh, all right, I do have a picture from Izzy D. John, I don't know if you can release. There you go. Thank you. Um, Hold on, I'm just trying to find this. There we go. So this is a shot that Izzy D just sent of the Garden State Parkway. I'm sorry, that's the term? Is that the turnpike? I'm thinking that's the turnpike. Uh, Traffic is all stopped, and I'm guessing it's because of flooding. Although I can't see why. And the video you sent me, Izzy, I can't play. It won't play. So just so you know, I don't know. There's a problem with it. I could not get it to play. So thank you for sending that, and also thank you for hitting super chat. Most appreciated. And I'm just dancing around here with my mouse. Okay, so now we got all that squared away. Okay, good. Let me go to the watches and warnings map so we can roll through what's going on. And a lot of flash flood warnings up. Just almost every county in northern New Jersey right now under a flash flood warning. And also we have uh, uh, s- uh, flood watches up. Obviously, we've got a severe thunderstorm watch that's part of the equation. There's a severe thunderstorm warning in parts of southeastern PA at the moment, and that's going to, we still got to roll through what's on the radar, as Joe pointed out. Meanwhile, flood watches are now up for Southern Virginia ahead of Debbie when it starts to move northward, and the rains that are going on now in North and South Carolina down to southeast Georgia finally start to kick northward, but it's going to be another 48 hours before that really starts to happen. We still have tropical storm warnings up for coastal South Carolina and also areas inland. There's a tornado watch that is up for parts of South Carolina as well as coastal North Carolina. So very busy there. We also have some flash flood warnings in western Pennsylvania and northeast Ohio. The rest of the country is just dealing with the usual summertime stuff with some extra heat across the lower Mississippi Valley, some extra heat in parts of the west. And we've got severe thunderstorm watches up western South Dakota, northeastern Wyoming, and a good chunk of the state of Montana uh, is um, is under a severe thunderstorm watch. So let's look on the satellite here, and you can see the rotation of Debbie to the south. And also, anytime anytime we have problems in the north in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England with fronts, it's usually, Joe, these east-west boundaries set up like this. And you've got all this tropical air. I noticed that dew points today were in the low to mid 70s. Temperatures were in the upper 80s and low 90s in a lot of places. I mean, the atmosphere was just absolutely right. And you got a strong upper trough that's swinging eastward, forcing this front to push southward. Meanwhile, Debbie's in that no man's land. I mean, crawling. It's moving. I think they're carrying east northeast at 3 miles an hour as far as the motion, and the center now is just literally off. You could probably stand on the beach and be right on the west side of in that center there. It's 10 miles to the east of Savannah, so it's just down. The circulation is getting out into the open waters of the Atlantic.
It's only forecast, Debbie is only forecast to move about 200 miles over the next couple of days. And that does not bode well if you've already been flooded out, because you're only going to continue to get flooded with more heavy rainfall for the next day or two as that storm again moves ever so slowly to the north and northeast.
And by the way, if you go into northern Georgia, I'm just in the edge now of the some of the high clouds they rolled in a couple of hours ago. It was low 80s today for a high. I didn't see specifically what the dew points were, but it was comfortable. We'll give you that. It was really comfortable out there. Also, there are some strong, bands of heavy offshore, some spiraling bands with embedded thunderstorms. You can see the lightning strikes showing up, and there's a band that's pretty far out to the east that's coming into eastern North Carolina. So this is a pretty, it's a very large circulation. There's not much though where the center is. There's very little going on near the center itself. There's probably just some low clouds because there's no convection and nothing showing up on the radar. The radar's offshore, and this is important because while it will try to strengthen some the whole center gets out over the open waters of the Atlantic, it's going to be limited by the fact that part of the circulation is still going to remain over land, that it's never going to really get out that far, and also the fact that it lacking convection near the center. It's in a way it's almost starting from scratch. It's going to have to start to rebuild that, and that just takes time. And there's no real time for this to be, thankfully, there's no real time for this to strengthen into a hurricane. But on the other hand, as you pointed out yesterday, uh, with the center going offshore, you're only going to increase the moisture coming in from the band spirally. So if it does strengthen a bit, it's going to really reinforce that fire hose of moisture.
And I notice on the chat board, Joe, our Alaskan friend Alfred K. Phillips says from 37 degrees Fahrenheit yesterday to 60 degrees today. He says it's my first summer weather. It's been cold up here all summer, June and July. Well, Alfred, I don't know if you're aware of this, but currently the temperature at Dead Horse, Alaska, that's on the North Slope, Joe, Dead Horse, Alaska, 86 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh God.
That is their all-time record. In fact, no station in Alaska this far north has ever been warmer. So while Alfred has been talking about, the fact that it jumped from the 30s into the 60-degree range today, not too far in the North Slope area, 86 degrees at Dead Horse, Alaska.
By the way, Ken Musillo hitting super chat. Thank you very much, Ken. It's insane. 88, 80. What did you say? 86 in Dead
86.
Horse. That's just crazy.
Yep.
That really is. I mean, oh, God. Uh, in a place where it shouldn't get anywhere near that warm. Uh, I can only imagine how it must feel to someone who's maybe never experienced an 80-degree temperature.
I mean, there must be a few people who call Dead Horse home, and they're probably outside, mopping their brow and saying, "My God."
And saying, how do people who live in the South survive in this?
Exactly. Exactly. You're not
Uh,
used to it. If you're not used to it, it's tough.
Yeah, it absolutely is. We've got some thunderstorms going on in the Rockies too, and you see a lot of lightning strikes going on there today. It's quiet in much of the Gulf states. One upside for the Gulf states has been the fact that when you've got a spitting system along the southeast coast, all that does is really just reinforces dry air. I mean, it was an absolutely spectacular blue sky kind of day, even here in North Georgia for a while before the high clouds came in from the east. But Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, uh, no thunderstorm. The atmosphere is very stable, so you're not even getting the afternoon and evening pop-ups, which you certainly would get, say, in southeast Louisiana and around New Orleans. You could set your clock to the 3 o'clock thunderstorm there every day in the summertime, but that isn't happening. And here's the wide shot of the radar, just as, again to go over what's going on in the northeast and northern mid, well, not quite into the northern mid-Atlantic states, but in the northernmost part of the northern mid-Atlantic states, southeast Pennsylvania. The strong thunderstorms now moving into that zone. We've got flash flood warnings and severe thunderstorm warnings up there. You can see all the green boxes over northern and central New Jersey and over Long Island with flash flood warnings. So all of this has to play through. There's another band in western Pennsylvania that's producing severe weather and some flash flood warnings there. We'll have to see if that survives during the overnight. And with the upper trough, it might have a shot of surviving. So we'll see. And the radar presentation with respect to Debbie, it's just all these green boxes of flash flood warnings in South Carolina and South Georgia. There's a couple also in North Carolina, and you can see those bands on the radar, even up into northeastern North Carolina. They're getting some heavy rains there, and the back edge goes into northeastern Florida. Some heavier downpours have gone through St. Augustine in the last couple of hours, but the rain, at least as of just about 8 o'clock Eastern time, has lightened up. The Storm Prediction Center went from a marginal risk 2 days ago to an enhanced risk today, and they that's what they have across Pennsylvania to the New Jersey state line. The slight risk to about New York City. We've got that working severe thunderstorm watch that's still up for northern New Jersey and uh, the Hudson Valley west of the Hudson back into eastern Pennsylvania. So that's still ongoing. We have an ongoing tornado warning. I'm sorry, tornado watch in coastal North Carolina into South Carolina. We've got two severe thunderstorm watches in the north in Montana and in northwest Wyoming and into western South Dakota, and also a marginal to slight risk indicated for southern Arizona. The outlook for the next couple of days, they've got marginal along the Carolina coast, both north and south, marginal in the central and parts of the northern plains. There's 2% tornado risk in the Carolinas. And then for day three, and day three takes us to Thursday into Friday, we have a marginal risk for southeast Virginia and the southern Delmarva Peninsula and in eastern North Carolina. Now, I want to hang on a second. Here's a close-up loop, by the way, of Debbie, so you can see the rotation that's
Wow.
offshore. Yeah, I mean, there's very little convection going on near the core, but you can see the bands here with the thunderstorms that are coming in.
Now
I don't- I-
you must be seeing in your sky where you are in North Georgia, mid to high level cloud cover that's sweeping in from the east. Correct?
yeah, I'm going to put an X. I'll put an X right where I am. Well, it's sort of an X, but that's about where I am. I'm 20 miles south. That's probably more than 20 miles. I'm 20 miles south where the North Carolina border. I live right very close to where the North Carolina border and the Georgia border cross. Okay, so that's me. And yeah, I'm just getting into the high clouds. I mean, it was mostly sunny here for up until about mid-afternoon.
All right. Bulletin.
Bulletin. This
Latest up.
just hold on. This just in.
Latest.
Oh,
The current temperature at Dead Horse, Alaska, has actually gone up
oh
two
God.
degrees. The temperature now at Dead Horse is 88 degrees, dew point 51, so at least it's a dry heat.
Yes.
28% relative humidity. The heat index, by the way, because it's so dry, is actually, it feels not quite as hot. 85 for the heat index. Winds from the south southwest at 8 miles per hour with a
Hooray,
visibility of 10 miles. So
hooray for the heat index.
88. And if you're wondering where Dead Horse is, the latitude of Dead Horse, Alaska is 70.2 degrees north. They are actually 4 degrees of latitude inside of the Arctic Circle. And here they are at 88 degrees this hour.
I wonder how much it cools down during the quote nighttime hours because they don't they still have probably about 22 hours of 22 or 23 hours of daylight.
Well, I can tell you that this morning that at 3:53 a.m. local time, local for Dead Horse, the temperature was 49
Oh, so
degrees.
it does cool off.
Right. It's 49 degrees if that's cool considering where they are located.
Oh, yeah, I mean it's hard to even grasp. Okay, so by the 8 o'clock advisory on Debbie, 31.8 north, 80.6 west. So that's about 30 miles southeast of Savannah, Georgia, 85 miles south-southwest of Charleston, South Carolina. Maximum sustained winds are carrying at 40 miles an hour, moving east-northeast or 075 degrees, Joe, at 3 miles per hour. Okay. Minimum central pressure 997 millibars, so it still has a fairly low pressure. Uh, it wouldn't shock me if we wind up seeing this strengthen a little bit. I just want to get the full map. Now they went back to this one. Why did they do this? They had a full map this morning of rainfall potential all the way up to all the way up to New England, and now they went back to this, really close-up map. But it's worth. Let me show it because they upped the, believe it or not, they upped the rate amounts. So in that purple zone, now bear in mind, a lot of these areas have already picked up quite a bit of rain. Um, but now they have a 20 to 30 inch. No, that purple, I'm sorry. Is that the reddish purple or the dark? No, that's the that's 20 to 30. Okay, so they have added a 20 to 30-inch rainfall area
God.
in southeastern North Carolina. And the red area, okay, is 12 to 16, and it's been raining there all day. So this is on top of everything. Charleston, we saw those Charleston numbers from this morning were at a foot, and they're forecasting another 8 to 12. So when it's all said and done, you're going to have this huge area here in South Carolina, and maybe even into southeast Georgia, up into northeastern North Carolina, where you're going to have 20 to 30-inch rainfall amounts in total. I mean, it's insane.
Keep in mind that here in New York, we get typically during an average year, we get about 45 inches of rain. And so to talk about 30 inches in a matter of just a few days, it boggles the mind. Unbelievable.
Now, the 7-day rainfall forecast update is interesting because WPC has now shifted the axis of the heavy rains westward. So, and this is important. We talked about this yesterday. The track of the low coming up the coast was coming northward up the eastern seaboard was going to be important because the heaviest rains are going to fall along and west of the low track. And a lot of the models today, Joe, were trying to take the low up in central Pennsylvania, which means that, the heaviest, which may be some good news, there'll be that there would be less rain for coastal areas from southern New England south, to southern New Jersey and point south. On the other hand, it means that you're going to have big amounts potentially big amounts in eastern and central Pennsylvania and up through upstate New York.
Absolutely. Well, the general rule of thumb with tropical systems is, especially those that are inland, is that you get the heaviest rain to the left or to the west of the storm track, and the gustiest winds are to the east of the storm track. So I don't know. Maybe we might see some gusty winds locally, more so later Friday into early Saturday. Here we'll get some rain, but it looks like, as you just pointed out, Joe, the heaviest rains may fall across portions of central Pennsylvania and central New York with the remnants of Debby at the end of this week.
Yep. Rainfall in the central plains, by the way, 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a half. Some areas of an inch and a half to 2 inches in central and western Colorado, and also in parts of Utah and Arizona, and then back up through Wyoming and into Montana. Not a whole lot of rain in the Great Lakes, not a whole lot of rain at all in the Gulf states, and hardly any rain at all out in the West. Donald Colgan, thank you for hitting Super Chat, banging the tip jar tonight. Most appreciated. All right, so I'm going to let's go to the models, shall we? Sure.
Surely.
Okay, well, surely you will enjoy this since I have this up because I was looking at this earlier. The one upside with tropical systems is that if they have something to them in terms of a an identifiable low of some sort as when they move up to the northeast, and sometimes they can be quite strong. But there's enough here with it, and you've got an upper trough coming in. Look at all that green that sweeps across the Great Lakes and into the east and to the south over the weekend. Those are dew points of 50 or less, and they're going to come in. They actually start to come in Saturday afternoon, and they go all the way down to the Gulf Coast. God, I hope this is true. And we're going to be sitting for at least for the Northeast and Northern Mid-Atlantic states for Sunday, Monday, and probably Tuesday, and maybe even into Wednesday morning of next week, even into Wednesday of next week, with dew points in the 50s. Heck, I'm
We've been
rolling.
waiting. We've been waiting all summer for something like this, not just a day or so of relief, followed by 3 or 4 or 5 days or 7 days of return to humidity. This is going to be a protracted spell of lovely weather. And Joe, the fact is that, and I know that some forecasters may be hedging their bets right now. It is, after all, Tuesday, and we're talking about maybe Saturday. But if the remnants of Debbie move fast enough, we may start Saturday with clouds and showers and then finish the day or move into the afternoon with lowering humidities, a gusty northwesterly breeze, drying conditions, and setting the stage for, as you just mentioned, a long term spell from later Saturday into Sunday and Monday and Tuesday and, Lord, even Wednesday of nice weather. We have waited a long time for this and we deserve it.
No, I totally agree with you. In fact, it might be even a little faster than that with a little luck, but I think your timing makes sense. But and I'm just looking at the GFS, which has been doing all these weird things with this, taking it across, taking it out over the water, and then taking it back westward across southern Georgia into Alabama, and a couple of runs a couple of days ago, taking it all the way to New Orleans, and then bringing it back out into the Gulf. Well, the whole argument all week long was that the European and the Canadian, the European, the icon, then and the Canadian model to a lesser extent showed a track that just made that made more sense. And finally, on this run, it has caught on. It has finally caught on, although it still tries to bring it back west to the Georgia border. I don't know if that's going to happen. But uh, the GFS actually takes, loses the low center, so it's the upper trough and all the tropical moisture that'll come up with the rain for Friday into Saturday. Now there is some rain. Here's our area tonight, which actually even let me switch to the GFS radar because that'll give us a better look. If you look at the GFS radar, Joe, it's got rain and thunderstorms through most of the night. And still having some left over in New Jersey tomorrow morning. Then that goes out. There's some scattered stuff that pops up during the day, but with the wind coming in off the ocean and clouds, your temperatures are going to not go anywhere tomorrow at all. And here comes the rain from Debbie starts to sneak in Thursday night. There's like some lead stuff, and then you get the main area that comes in Friday night into Saturday morning on the GFS. It still has rain Saturday afternoon, but it's probably too slow. I still like the Icons idea and the Europeans idea because they're both close to the same. So here, Debbie comes off. It strengthens a bit, comes inland somewhere between Charleston and Myrtle Beach, then goes into central North Carolina. And here's where it gets a little dicey because it goes pretty far to the left. I mean, it takes the low up into central PA. So if you believe this, and it maintains a viable core. So if you believe this, heavy rain for western North Carolina, heavy rain for western Virginia, where they really need it. It's been very dry there, and also heavy rains going into western and central Pennsylvania. There'll be rain for areas to the east across eastern PA, New Jersey, southeastern Virginia, up the coast to Long Island and into New England. But the bigger rains are going to be in those yellows and reds that you see, uh, central Pennsylvania, central New York. If we wind up with a track that far to the left, and there's still a viable core. And also, by the way, if you believe the icon, yeah, it's long gone by Saturday morning. This, in fact, it's mostly done by 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning on Saturday, and then it's partly to mostly sunny beyond that. I think there's a possibility that that's how it's going to play out. So it might be a little faster, and the weekend will turn out to be quite nice.
That's assuming that everything moves along at the current rate of speed. And you may be right, Joe. Things may be moving even quicker than what you just described. It may very well be, and again, it's only Tuesday now. We're talking about the weekend, but it could very well be that we could have wet weather, Friday night when people wake up on Saturday morning, whenever they do wake up, let's say 8, 9, 10 o'clock. It's all over. It's gone, and we may even be in a clearing trend by then. So that just goes to show you what a former tropical system can do, clearing out and drying out the skies and the atmosphere in its wake. And we're all hoping that that'll be the case for this weekend and on into early part of next week.
By the way, we haven't really called attention to this, but while all this has been going on with Debbie, there's actually been three tropical storms in the Pacific, on the Eastern Pacific, um, uh, and they were all within about several hundred miles of each other. But so they've actually blown through they're now through the F name, and next one for them is G. So it's just, but we've got something on the Atlantic side. Unless it's impacting land somewhere, we're not going to talk about anything on the Pacific side. And there's the upper, looking at the upper air. That's a nice wrapped up upper low that goes into the western lakes and nice trough that moves into the eastern part of the United States. And no wonder we're going to get uh, a break from the humidity that's going to last more than 24 hours. I mean, this could very well last for a good chunk of next week, the way it's playing out. And after that lifts out, we'll probably go back to some heat and humidity. There's a building upper high mid-month in the over the middle Mississippi Valley. There's a big upper ridge there that pushes into the east, and then eventually another trough will come down and kind of squash it a bit. So we're not done with the heat and humidity by any means, but uh, the next week coming up will be a well-deserved break.
Well deserved. It very deserved. We have been waiting a long time, as I said, because we've been getting we've had during this summer. There've been a few days where, oh, look at that, a beautiful day. Oh, it's the humidity is down and the blue sky, but it only lasts for about a day. It's gone within a matter of 36 to 48 hours. At least now we have hope that we're looking at a pattern which is going to stay with us right on through the first half of next week if things work out and break for us. But in order to get that, unfortunately, we're going to have to deal with the remainder of this week, which looks to be rather humid and in many cases rather wet.
Jason Fox, you like how I say Lake Huron? How are you supposed to say it? Am I saying it right? Am I saying it right, Joe? Oh, we got 100. That's good.
We got
Um,
yes.
Thank you for those of you who hit the like button. It's Lake Huron. right? Correct? Or is it? It's not Huron.
You're on. You're on, Joe.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, how do you say it?
I've always said it as Lake Huron.
Okay. Huron. No, wait, Jason Anthony says it's Huron. Huron. Vincent Croce says Huron, and Anthony says I say it correct. Okay.
I got to tell you something. If you've never been to the edge of any of the Great Lakes, some years ago when we were up in upstate New York looking around for colleges for one of my kids, and it was right at the edge of Lake Erie. And I got to tell you something. I could have sworn I was looking out over the ocean. I mean that these bodies of water are really no wonder they call them the Great Lakes. They are great. They are large.
Well, I was reading the other day. It's funny you should. For some reason, I stumbled on an article about Lake Superior, and Lake Superior is bigger than all the other lakes combined, and has like I forgot what the fraction was. Like 1/5 of the Earth's fresh water is in Lake Superior,
Wow.
and it's also the deepest lake. Goes way down, and they talked about the fact that the water replacement. Um, it takes 200 years for the water to cycle through Lake Superior, and as opposed to Lake Erie, which takes like 3 years or something like that. But it was very interesting piece about Lake Superior. It's got a lot of ships in there that have sunk. You all
Hello.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I said Lake Superior. There are a lot of ships in there that have sunk.
Yeah. And a lot of ships
I
over
just
the
I just I just said that.
yes,
A lot of ships.
lots of them. Yeah, was the Edmund Fitzgerald one of them?
Yes. Yes. Lake Superior is the world's largest freshwater lake by surface area, covering 31,700 square miles. Now, I've been to Lake Erie and I've been to Lake Ontario. I will make it a point to go to the other three lakes before I leave this earth. And before Joe and I leave this earth, we're going to leave this show with tonight. The Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the descriptor to this podcast. Use the coupon code Joe.
Summer 2024, Joe.
If you do, you will get Joe.
10% off, Joe. Hey, by the
Yes.
speaking of the Edmund Fitzgerald, it was carrying a full cargo of ore pellets with Captain Ernest M. McSorley in command. She embarked on her ill-fated voyage from Superior, Wisconsin, near Duluth, on the afternoon of November 9th, 1975, en route to a steel mill near Detroit. The Edmund Fitzgerald joined a second taconite freighter, SS Arthur M. Anderson, and by the next day, the two ships were caught in a severe storm on Lake Superior with near hurricane force winds, waves up to 35 feet, and shortly after 7:10 p.m., Edmund Fitzgerald suddenly sank in the Canadian Ontario waters, 530 feet from Whitefish Bay near the Twin Cities of Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, a distance the Edmund Fitzgerald could have covered in just over an hour at top speed. So that's probably the most famous ship that's ever been lost in Lake Superior area was the Edmund Fitzgerald.
By the way, we should mention Scott Briller is who normally provides us with our trivia at the end of the show that we call Briller Jeopardy. He's taking care of his mom. She had another fall, and so we wish her a speedy recovery, and just want to pass that along to everybody, particularly you folks on the chat board, because uh, you all are one big group together. So just want to pass that along as she's slowly improving, and we wish her her and Scott Uh, all the best. And Cecilia Hernandez, just before we go, I know you asked about looking at the upper air. I actually don't have a chart that shows the upper air over the Arctic per se, but I use the North America chart because you can see it. And I did notice, Joe, that it's going back to what's today? Tuesday?
Tuesday,
There's
the 6th.
Yeah, so there's a big ridge in eastern Alaska, northwestern Canada. There's a 582 height that's up there, and the 576 height goes all the way into the Arctic Ocean. So there's a big ridge, so that the eastern part of Alaska and along the north slope are getting the heat. Okay, there's troughing in western Alaska, and Alaska's a huge state, by the way. I think it's 2.5 times the state the size of Texas. Um, so there's quite a bit of distance from eastern to part of Alaska to the west, where there's troughing. So it's colder in the west, but it's very very warm in the east in the eastern part of the state, and that's going to last um, into next week. Just checking here through the rest of this week, and actually when we get to the weekend, the ridge goes away. So Alfred Phillips, you only got maybe another day or two of that warm weather before things cool down for you.
I wonder if in such a situation as this, if places up on the north slope of Alaska, if the Weather Service issues some kind of a heat advisory.
Uh, Good question. Let me take a look. Let's see. They don't have a heat advisory. What's that yellow thing? It's a land hazard. Uh, oh, they no, they got a wind advisory up near Wonder Lake. This is south of Fairbanks. Wonder Lake and Moose Creek and Donnelly. Uh, Wind advisory remains in effect. Hot, breezy conditions through this evening, and then they have a red flag warning to the north of that in Tanana Flats South. And this thing's jumping around. I can't read it. All right, but you get the idea. And along the north slope, they don't have anything there. I'm just to pull up a zone forecast for Dead Horse, Joe. Right now, it's 89.
Oh,
89.
oh God.
And that's at the Dead Horse Airport. Okay. So the forecast for today was widespread haze, mostly sunny and hot with a high near 86. So they've already busted. Haze tonight, low of 53. Mostly cloudy tomorrow, high 75. Um, a 20% chance of rain after 10 p.m. tomorrow night, then widespread haze, a low of 52. Thursday, 40% chance of rain with a high of 66. Then 48. Then Friday, 58. 44, 54, 43, 50 going into Saturday and Sunday. So the heat wave is almost over. I wonder if they're going to go to 90. They're only 1 degree away from 90 degrees. That's insane. That's just insane. All right, we're done. Everybody, we'll see you all tomorrow at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. Night night.
Good night, folks.